Yeah, so the whole idea is this. We want to be for you. We want to be for your life, your heart, your dreams, your desires, your community. We want to be for those you love. We want to be for those that you have a hard time loving. We want to be for Southeast Boise, Surprise Valley, Harris Ranch, Columbia Village, and around. We want to be for the workplaces, the schools, Timberline, LaBois, East, the elementary schools in the area. We want to go across the valley. Some of you are from Meridian, as far as Kuna. We just, like the heartbeat of the Church of Jesus Christ has been always to be for. So you can fill in the blank as you kind of walk through this series that we're going to be in for the next 4 weeks. I'm going to be saying four a lot, I just realized, if I'm not careful about this. So what I want to say is good morning, everyone. I'm so glad you're here as October hits us. It's a kind of like flannel Sunday at Eastwind, I noticed out front. So I guess it's that time of season has hit us. And what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through what God has been doing in and through this church. And I'm excited to think about our future together. Today, if you're a guest with us today, you kind of chose a wild Sunday to start because we're starting something called a generosity campaign today. And we'll get into that in just a second. You don't leave yet. It'll be super awkward. They'll be like, you left as soon as he said that. Leave later when it's like bathroom time or something like that. So what's going to unfold here is we're going to look at what God's doing, where God is leading us, and what part each of us can play in the process. Now, the thing about these conversations, I was walking through this, and I've been here, over 5 years. If you've been here that whole time, you've heard me stand up here and say something, like 200 times. Let's be generous and say 40 minutes a time, right? Maybe it's a little longer sometimes. You do the math. You have heard a lot of words come out of my mouth. Bottom line would be this. We just hope that what you hear is that Jesus Christ is for you. That the goal of the good life is to be like him. And that comes from being with him. So everything we say and do kind of centers on that in one way or the other. And today, even this conversation tactically about the future of this church, it's got to be the same thing. Like, honestly, if it's something else, then I can't even put my heart into it, right? It has to be about what it looks like to follow Jesus. Whether you go, man, I'm like a lifetime follower of Jesus Christ. Or whether you go, I am far more questions than answers. I've unspooled this thing, and all I have is just a bunch of experiences and thoughts and practices. I don't even know what to do with them anymore. Or maybe you're like how I grew up, and that's kind of Jack's story and Susie's as well in different ways, where you'd say, or I just don't know, but I have questions. There's something in my heart that's asking these questions. So we're going to start out today with kind of a family meeting approach to this. And family meetings, okay, I'm a dad of 4, right? I don't know, how many of you have or had family meetings growing up? Let's just kind of see what our room's like. Did you love them? Right? Like in my home, family meeting time, all my kids had to go to the bathroom all of a sudden. Like all of a sudden, all of you have to go to the bathroom, and why is it taking you so long? So family meetings can be really complicated. I actually came across just an actual family meeting that I sent my family and was like, guys, I'm so sorry that I'm like this. And I'll just give you a moment to settle your hearts.
I'm going to distribute the envelopes, and I would like you all to read them very carefully, because the envelopes contain very specific information about what the expectations are for this trip. Shay Shay?
I'm scared to read on our own time. Let's not forget we have this beautiful view before we get yelled at.
Welcome to Lake Tahoe. I'm excited to have the family back together for a vacation. If you have a dirty dish, glass, utensil, or pan, you must either clean it immediately or rinse it and put.
You ever been that? Like you're on vacation, I think that's Tahoe, and the first thing you get is a letter from dad that goes, if you have a dirty dish, make sure you clean it. Now, clearly that's a reaction to a lot of other things that have happened. So we're going to have a generosity conversation in this family meeting, and I just want to start with a question. We do questions when you gather together. It's this, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much, hold on, you don't get your tunes yet. Take it back for me. All right, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you love talking about money in church? So you're going to turn to your neighbor and you're just going to tell them your honest answer. Some of you are so jazzed right now. You're like, 10. I cannot wait. Carlos never talks about money. Others of you got just super nervous. After that, I'm going to have you just show on your fingers what your score is. All right, you get 1 minute to chat about this. seconds. All right. On the count of 3, just flash your number, okay? 1, 2, 3. Oh, some of you are like, oh, I got a number 1 I want to show you, Carlos, but you're not going to do that right now. Others of you are like, you're doing this at me. Like earlier this morning, people were like, yes, because here's the bottom line. Money's part of life. God is life. When we look at the story of Scripture, Jesus Christ had a lot to say about our hearts and money. So we're kind of walk into this as we have this family meeting style conversation. I just want to begin with this reality. God has been so faithful to this church. This church, Eastern Community Church, started at a band shell over in Barbara Park in 1994. It was a pastor who had moved up here with a heart to bring a church to Southeast Boise that people could connect with, people who are far from God or not necessarily religious, also those who love Jesus, they could all draw together. I think 9 people came to the first one, and it started this journey. They moved around throughout the 2000s into different hotels and ballrooms. At one point, they were in the Flicks Theater, eventually taking a risk and buying the 3.5 acres that we sit on right here with the building, the grass, the parking lot. And then through surrendering, listening, and sacrificing, they built this building, honestly, with money they didn't have and time they didn't have. Can I just see who was here for that? Okay, just look around, everybody. There's like 10 hands up in the room. They laid this foundation that we all stand in and on today, that this week our students met throughout the room. We gather here. We raise funds for our nonprofit partners. That was all established through this kind of wild moment of risk and faith and belief. And God has used Eastwind in Southeast Boise and beyond through investing in local partners, through global ministry, through our Kenya Kids Partnerships Education Program in southeastern Kenya, and through generosity and wise stewardship since 2020. Here's what's happened. So 2020, we had debt. And this was the debt we carried was in this building. And in 21, we paid that debt off. And then in the last 4 years, we've saved $700,000 just through faithful generosity. And a lot's happened in that time. The reason I share that just snapshot of where we've gone is because none of it's actually about this place. It's about people. It's about hearts. Never at any point are we talking about square feet, buildings, walls. Because if I'm in your shoes, that's not very exciting. Or maybe you're an architect or something, that is exciting. All right, but if I'm in your shoes, I go, no, it's actually the building is just a method. The meaning is the people that God loves and meets and finds and tells a new story of hope for them. And so we're going to walk into this conversation called Let's Build Our Future. And it's going to be part of our series, our family meeting as we walk through this. I just want to give you a snapshot of why we're having this conversation. This is us over the last 5 years. So, and here's the thing. I like numbers because they tell us something, but we don't really know what they tell us. We don't know if it's good or bad. We just know it's more. I look around and I see people and I go, you're the more. It's good. You've connected in community. You found hope. You've worked through brokenness. You've realized you can bring your broken self here and you can find healing and walk that journey. You've found service and purpose and community. And if you look, you can just see like the reality of 207 people in 2021, 509 is our average this year, but we're over 600 for the last month. It's our service. So there's still room if you look around, but it's full. And then you pull that out over the next 5 years. And now nothing happens in a vacuum, right? But a lot could change. But if we just keep moving the way we're moving, you can see that by 2030, there's a challenge around here. It's not a new challenge for this church. Just the same challenge. There's a challenge around here. And so your board leadership, we're a board-led church. Your board leadership's spent really their whole lives in this church working on the health and the future of the church. But the last 3 years, they've really dialed in and said, we have to get ahead of this and start working on this and planning this. We have to start thinking about what this is going to look like. And here's some of the steps that they have taken. During that journey, they strengthened our ministry budget from $550,000 in 2020 to $1.4 million today. Most of you probably didn't even know that happened. You're very generous. If you look on the back of your message notes, you can see what giving looks like in the life of this church. The big addition in that budget was increasing support to our kids and youth by adding 2.5 additional staff. You come around on a Wednesday. Dominic, how many junior hires were here last week? There were 88 junior hires here on Wednesday night last week. There were probably another 40 to 50 kids in Anchored, which is our preteen ministry. And you can just see like the impact of investing our resources in these spaces. What we came at 3 years ago with the board is we said, look, we want to just practice generosity for the next generation because we have to say things fancy. And that's what we landed on. So kind of continuing down what this looks like in our family meetings. So then the board formed a Futures Committee. Futures Committee was made up of leaders from our community who came together with different industry skill sets and started to look at what can we do in the life of this church? Do we need to buy property? Do we stay here? Do we build? How do we build and what does it look like? Because we have 3.5 acres. And one of the things that they did in that process was they led us to the signing of a 30-year lease with Idaho Power to support our parking need. Idaho Power is across, there's the property right next to us here. So we have a 30-year lease with Idaho Power. We're going to work on putting better parking than the county fair lot that we have in the back with the voles and the weeds. But it's in the works right now. And then they came back and we landed on, we're going to stay right here. We're going to build here. This is the space God has given this church. It comes with all sorts of constraints. So we chose an architect that loved the constraints. They said, we love that you don't have a 10-acre cornfield. You have a problem, and we want to join with you. And we want to become a partner that helps you solve that. And then we realized we needed to add some skill to the table. So we added a few temporary roles to help us in this process. One is an owner's rep. Those of you in building might know how an owner's rep works. But trust me, you do not want me talking to the city about permits. Two things will happen. We'll get bad permits, and this will get worse. So the owner's rep has skill and experience in this area, and they guide us in this process. And at the same time, they're taking care of our facility. And because resources, money, and giving are going to be such a big part of how we move forward, we brought alongside someone to help us with stewardship. If you're not in the church world, and that's not a familiar word for you, it's just to help us with healthy finances in the process. And I want to introduce you to the two of them real quick. This is Neil Bull. He's our owner's rep. Those of you who this is your church home, you want to get to know this guy, because if you have questions over the next 2 years, he's who you want to talk to. He'll be in the lobby after the service with a stack of some overview plans of what we're looking at. So you can meet Neil. And then this is Sean Riley. Here's what I love. Neil and Sean, we didn't go find them. They were sitting right here. And they started and just said, how can we help? And then we realized we needed their full-time help, not just when they had available time outside of their other jobs. And so we said, how about this? Why don't we link arms for a while and in this season? And what we're working towards in this, and family meeting's almost over. What we're working towards in this is that we trust God. That's the life of faith. If you're a follower of Jesus, that's what it is. If you're not, that's what we're calling you to. That you dream big. We don't do a quarter measure or a half measure or do a next thing, but like the church that built this place we're in, we dream big enough for what the next future will be. The one that sometime down the road, some pastor will say, raise your hand if you were part of it. And who knows how many hands will go up, because so many new people will be impacted by it. We build here, and we find partners to dream with us. That's kind of been our marching orders. So this is your snapshot then. There's our property, right? Eastern Community Church is the 3.5 acres south of the blue or below the blue line, and then 5 acres of Idaho Power land. That blue line is actually our property line, so we're a slice of pizza. And we built this building, the corner of it is right on that property line. So I'm going to give you just a quick look at where we believe God is taking us in this journey. We took a survey, and you all said we need more spaces for kids and youth, and you're right. The challenge is we also need spaces for the people who drive them here, which is the adults, so that you can park and you can also be here. So we wrestled with this, and we can't do both at the cost of building in Boise right now at once. We have a master plan for the whole thing, but on the east side of our campus, this direction, we're going to look at taking the portable we already own and moving it over there. That's 1,400 square feet. We kind of like to hide it out of the way. It's not like the nicest building in the neighborhood, okay? Taking that portable, moving it over there, and building sort of a plaza area with 3 800 square foot yurts to build together space for our preteens, which was an old dream we worked on temporarily, but now we've got the process, and we've got the owner's rep at the table, and we have the architects, and we're working through this. This move for our kids will add, once they get this space as well, which is their future. This will be our future kids and youth room. This move for our kids will add almost 7,000 square feet to kids and youth spaces in this whole process. So that's part of our first phase. It's actually a fairly affordable part of our first phase. This is where we get into the dynamics. This is our first phase of build. It would be a new sanctuary or auditorium and it would be the necessary bathrooms and lobbies and things that go with that. So this is all available for you in the lobby. You can grab it as you go. But the key thing is this. We have asked ourselves, how do we stay a community church? How do we stay a church where you can be known, where you can get connected, where your kids can be involved, where as a single you can find community? Like, how do we do all of that, right? And there is a size, like there are sizes that once you go beyond that, you just can't do that. And we want to stay under that. So the new auditorium space will seat upwards of 700 people. We hope to be in 2 services here. Lobby to connect with it. This is one thing. I'm going to be really honest with you, longtime Eastwinders. I hear this all the time. Let's not build anything fancy. I've been in a lot of churches. This is one of the fanciest churches I've ever been in. It's got custom steel trusses on wood beams. It's got windows looking out at the foothills. I don't know what we mean. What we're not going to do is build like just a block with some sheetrock and an acoustic drop ceiling. We want to create a space that I think you all feel when you walk in this church, you hopefully, before anyone says anything to you, feel a little more comfortable. You just feel it feels a little more warm, a little more welcome. And so the first phase includes adding the new sanctuary space and tucking it in on our property line so we save all of our buildable space for our kids and youth down in the final phase of the plan. It also includes lobby and necessary spaces, and then all of this side of the building turns into new kids and youth spaces. So our preschool, our nursery, everything moves down that direction. What it might look like, those of you who've been around building, renderings are not necessarily accurate, but the idea is that when you drive down Surprise Valley, you'd still have a nice connection to glass, nice connection to natural wood. It would fit in our environment. Some of you that might be exciting for. For all of me, for this, it's just like if there's a square foot, it means a person can be in it, right? So that's what this conversation is going to be about today as we move into a fall series on generosity. Let's Build Our Future is our capital campaign. It's an opportunity for us as a church community to consider how we can give above and beyond to see this project come to pass. Our financial goal in the project is to raise $2.5 million. And next week I'll have an update for you on how your board and your leadership and some folks who have come to the table early, how far we are towards that goal. The whole scope of the first phase may be upwards of $8 million because of building costs in Boise right now. And so we faithfully step into that. I became a Christian in 1994. And then I went to a college that had a big chapel on it. And they were redoing the steeple. And the steeple was like $1 million or something like that. And I was so sick to my stomach, I was like, what's this garbage? Putting steeples on buildings when people need to know Jesus. Some of you, that can be something you could connect with. I just want to let you know that over my life with Christ, I've come to value space more than I used to. And part of it is being in spaces where I see people encounter Jesus. And so I hope you will join us with that. But here's our bottom line, okay? This isn't about architects, not about pledge campaigns. The whole thing has to be about what we call the good news. If you don't know what the good news is, it's that generosity is not something we start. It's actually something we join because God is generous and he gives first. The text, John 3:16, it's old football field goal text. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. They said generosity starts with God. That whoever believes in him wouldn't perish but have eternal life. So every act of generosity with your time, with your forgiveness, with your thoughtfulness, with your money, every act of generosity traces back to the God who so loved the world. And we know this. Buildings don't change lives. Jesus does. I feel pretty confident saying that out loud. So we want to create space where more people can meet him. I'm going to pray for us, and we're going to talk about what this looked like in the early church. So, Father, we thank you. I think I'm a realist, God, and I know that this conversation can have any number of feelings. But I pray the dominant one is hope, anticipation, and trust. And that everybody in this room, whether they just came because they were invited by a friend and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm here for the building day, or they have blood, sweat, and tears built this place in the past and they're ready to do it again, that all of us can just find you in the process, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So For Boise, Let's Build Together is a project that sits in the middle of this For Boise conversation. I want to take you all the way back to the first church, okay? So here's what unfolds. About 20 years after Jesus rises from the dead, the event that all of Christianity sits on, 20 years after Jesus rises from the dead, there's these small Christian communities that are scattered all over the Roman Empire. The first big church is in Jerusalem, because that's where it started. And it's kind of like the OG space, everybody's there, first big church. It's in Jerusalem, but they're suffering. So they've had famine, poverty. One of the things they did, if you read their story, is they sold all their possessions, and it's believed that many of them sold their property and quit their jobs, and because they thought Jesus was coming, and then all of a sudden they're like left with very little, and a famine comes, and they were starving, and they were being persecuted. And their widows, which has always been a big deal to the ethic of Jesus Christ, their widows had no safety net, no one to care for them and their kids, and to feed them. So this leader named Paul, and most of you know Paul's story, but if you don't, I'll just give you the quick spark notes on Paul. Paul was a very religious man who hated Christians. He thought they were kind of a blight on society, and he oversaw the public execution of the first Christian that was recorded. And then he went about trying to arrest and tear down and destroy any Christians he could find. And he met Jesus. And Jesus turned all of that energy and turned it towards life. And so Paul becomes someone who tells people about the good news of Jesus Christ, and he plants churches, he starts churches. And we're going to read from Paul today. And Paul's writing a letter to a church in Corinth, right? Some of you have done Mediterranean trips, or maybe you took geography, but you can see where Jerusalem is on the blue dot and where Corinth is on the orange dot, right? Corinth's right in Greece. It's a great spot, this city of Corinth. It's a wealthy port city. It's a place they've got money, they've got culture. People are starting to follow Jesus, and they're not yet being persecuted there. All right, now this church, if you read the letter to Corinth in the Bible, this church is a hot mess. They've got some challenges and some problems, but what they do have is resources. I don't feel that unfamiliar to the churches I've been part of, right? I mean, good places to live, good community, good people, but lots of stuff we're dealing with right here. Trying to figure out. Almost we feel guilty about, we're like, my life is good on so many levels. Why am I not good on that level? So Paul's going to write to that church, and he's going to write to them about another church. This church up here in Macedonia. It's up north. It's where places like Philippi and Thessalonica and Berea are for you Bible nerd people, right? They weren't wealthy. They didn't have money. They were under pressure. They were just economically poor. They were on the margins socially, and they were persecuted heavily for being Christians. And so if anyone had a reason to sit out a conversation about what generosity looks like, it's the Church of Macedonia. The reason I start here is we do so much teaching on giving out of the Bible, and I'm probably not the best person to teach it because I feel like we misuse a lot of it. This is not a misuse. This is Paul. That sounds so lame for me to say. So many people misuse it. I'm not. Okay, so here's what's happening. Paul, here's why I say that. Because Paul's just talking to one church about another, saying, guess what I learned from them? It's really straightforward. It's almost like we get to look in and see what unfolds as they go through it. So Paul writes to Corinth, that port city that's got everything going for them. And look what he says, 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 1 to 5. If you're following along or you want to grab the brown Bible in front of you, it's in your notes as well. This is what Paul says. And now, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace God has given the Macedonian churches. Now, I told you, this grace for them looks like persecution. They're on the margins. They've got no money, right? Now, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. In the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. I read that line all week because that's what I do. I'm reading through these lines, thinking about it. I thought, man, I would love, could you imagine if that's like a eulogy statement for you? I hope you live a long time. But if it was like, let me tell you about Carlos. His overflowing joy and his extreme poverty, because it didn't come from his possessions or his successes, or his overflowing joy and his extreme poverty welled up, and the dude was so generous. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able to, even beyond their ability. And there Paul is introducing us to what it looks like to follow Jesus and to view a life of generosity. He says, entirely on their own, they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the Lord's people, and they exceeded our expectations. Just look at that, entirely on their own. This is kind of what I pictured. There were no phones, but also no one talks on a phone anymore, but I'm going to do a phone thing here. So they're like, hey, Paul, this is Macedonia. Paul's like, hey, guys, I hear you got really tough. What's up? They're like, dude, we just really want to give. Oh, no. You don't have to give. Sorry. Okay. Oh, no. You don't have to give. This is an iPhone for those of you who couldn't figure out what was going on there. Let me switch this here so I don't cover my mic. You don't have to give. You guys are already so struggling. They're like, no, Paul, please. Look at that line right there. They urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the Lord's people. And they exceeded our expectations. They gave themselves, first of all, to the Lord. And then by the will of God also to us. That's the life right there. You see the surprise? The poorest churches pleaded for a chance to give. And one thing I've seen in my whole life in the church is we're very similar to anywhere else. If you have a lot, you should give, and there's sort of some pressure. Why aren't you more generous? And if you have a little, you should receive. And there's a weird pressure we live under. Most of you know, because I share it, I grew up pretty poor, and I'm 50, and I still worry all the time about not having enough. It's such a strange thing how it shaped me. And I could very easily have this mentality, even though I have much more now. My mentality could be, yeah, but I suffered. My mom, she's a single mom and working those hourly jobs and 2 kids. And we were, she cleaned houses and we stayed in the houses she cleaned as a way of putting a roof over our heads. And I've shared this. I can remember times when my mom would wake us up in the middle of the night and go, we have to leave because the owners came. There was no Airbnb booking. She didn't know they were coming. So here's what that does to you. It marks how you think about generosity. I should be on the receiving end of your generosity because I might not always have. And if you grew up in a different world or you've had more success, you should be generous. Paul says no. That's a lame system. Look at the Macedonians. They pleaded with us to be part of this, even as they suffered. So often when it comes, I go to fundraisers sometimes, and when I'm at the fundraiser, it's always what's the least we can give and still look good? How do we work our way through this and find our way around this? And the Macedonians, you want them at your fundraiser because they're the ones who show up and they're like, what's the most we can give? No, we need to know the most because that's what we want to do. So let's just talk about this. They teach us how to give biblically. If you're a follower of Jesus, you probably know this, but dial in with me. If you're not, everything here applies to your life because I promise you, money kicks your butt. So everything here applies. This is what we learned from them. I'm just going to roll out a list for you in those few short sentences. First thing they do is they give worshipfully. Now, you might feel like, yeah, okay, that works for religious people. No, we all give worshipfully. And worship is just that thing you put your trust in. You don't have to be religious to be somebody who worships. So they give worshipfully. 2 Corinthians, Paul says, they gave first to the Lord. They didn't give to the project. They didn't give to the Let's Build Our Future campaign. They didn't give to the general fund. They didn't give to the fundraiser. They gave to the Lord first. That was their true north. They gave willingly. The word says entirely on their own. They urgently pleaded with us. I love that. And that's going to be my heartbeat for us. I've talked with some of you about this project we're doing. And some folks have said, we're a little uncomfortable with the size of the project. We love the church. We're going to hang back. I hear that, and I just hear it's a willingness. It's fair. Give willingly. Don't be like, oh, man, this church is doing this thing, and we got to do this thing. There's just this freedom. Please be free in all of this. That's what Jesus Christ does. He does not give you some new law to fit or to measure up. He gives you freedom. They gave willingly, entirely on their own. They urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in the service. They gave proportionally. I don't know how much they gave. I know Paul had it, and he took it to Jerusalem, and he blessed the church in Jerusalem with it, but it just says they gave as much as they were able. Some of you are in this room are like the Macedonian church. You're paycheck to paycheck. And it can probably feel a little off-putting to come to church here. You pull in the parking lot, you see some cars, and you go, I'm embarrassed, or I feel like my car doesn't fit in this parking lot, and you come in the room, and I know that because I've talked with people about that. And I'd say, so you might feel like the Macedonian church. I'm not sure what I can do or how I fit or what. And others, you might be like Corinth. You're like, we just got the ports are open and life is good, right? Everybody, they just gave as much as they were able. That's going to be our challenge. Are you able? And can you give? And then it says they gave sacrificially. Paul says they gave even beyond their ability. But it doesn't stop there. Turns out they had this really weird emotion. Okay, when I said scale from 1 to 10, how many of you like talking about church and money? Most of you, I don't think your heart lit up. And you're like, woohoo, best day in church ever, right? Most of you. It doesn't have to be church. It could be anywhere, in your living room. Could be with other. Money's just like, we don't mind talking about it with like our financial planner sometimes, if you have one. But generally, we don't know how or why or what to talk about with money. And I think it's partially because we don't realize that there's this gift in generosity of cheerful living. There's just this gift of going, like, my life can be so full of gratitude. They had overflowing joy, and it says their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. Their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. And they gave accountably. They gave themselves first of all to the Lord, and then by the will of God to us. Now, I've got a little switch coming at the end here, right? But I just want to take it one step further. So that's how they gave biblically. Take that with you. Look at it. Look over it. Consider how you view your time and your resources in your life and how it matches up with this gift the Macedonian church was living into. Why do you give biblically? Here's the key, right? The very first thing is simply this. The grace God has given the Macedonian churches. That's why. Because of grace. Grace is a fairly inadequate working definition. Grace is a gift you receive that you don't deserve. It's the love of God. Most of us are probably sitting in here going, if I can just fix this or this, maybe I can be good enough for God. And God's like, no, you already are, because I have done the work. You don't have to crucify yourself. I paid that price so that you could be adopted into my family. That's grace. It's a gift, free gift. And because of this view they had that generosity starts with what God gives us, and that'd be my thing. If this isn't your church home, or you'd say, I'm not a follower of Jesus, but I like coming, I like learning, I like growing, my encouragement would be, don't move past grace right now. This is your work during the Let's Build Together capital campaign. It's not to cut a check or to decide what you're going to give to it. It's to sit and it is to receive the grace of Jesus Christ. Then when you receive that, down the road, you can figure out what that looks like with your time and your money and your emotion, and you can freely lean into those things. But we would absolutely be missing it if we're like, hey, everybody, don't worry about where, like, your understanding of the generosity of Jesus Christ. Just please give so we can build the new stuff. Clearly, I'm not a great fundraiser, by the way. So they understood this reality of Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Really short sentence. Could potentially be cataclysmic in how you stress and worry and grab hold of and white knuckle your life. Because if the earth is mine and everything in it, I am out of control. But if the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, then my life is a gift because I'm in that and I belong to him. Everything we have is from God. That's a freeing realization. And on the freedom of that grace, we give with a willingness. This has always been my tension with the 10% tithe teaching. Sorry for those of you. Well, not sorry you practice it. But my tension with it has always been, do we give from a willingness, or do we give because there's a code or a law we have to follow to be faithful to God? And what I love is when I come across folks who go, the tithe helped me understand how to give. 10% is a lot. For most of you, you'd be like, whoa, right? 10% is a lot. But there's people in this room who would say, that taught me a way of living that now I give 20. I give 30. That's wild. There's a willingness, and I always feel like laws don't create willingness. They create rule followers. So we got to be real careful. It starts with grace, and then it's this willingness. Entirely on their own, they pleaded. And seriously, I hope one of you sends me an email that goes, Carlos, I'm dirt poor, but how can I participate in this? Because I've received the grace of Jesus Christ. And I hope another one of you sends me an email that goes, Carlos, I'm super loaded, And how can I participate in this, right? Just being honest, internal thoughts coming out into the public there. At any time in this month, if you feel guilt or shame rising up, I reject it for you. You don't have to reject it. I reject it for you. Those are not the motivators for following Jesus. Willingness. And the last is they saw it as a privilege. We give because it's a privilege. Their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. It was an honor to do God's work. That's how I feel in my life. It was an honor to do the work of God. It was never a do I have to. It was like, wait, what? I get to? This is what's going on right now? I want that. I think that's the heart of this church. And so hopefully you don't feel like we're doing a fundraiser, but you feel like we're having a Jesus moment during this month. And we just walk through it. And in the walking through it, we practice something. We practice something that Jesus, let's go to Jesus' words and just look at it, that Jesus said. So Jesus once watched people give at the temple. That's an interesting moment. The Son of God is observing people in a religious practice, practicing their generosity. Many gave large sums, and a poor widow gave 2 small coins. You know the plot twist, right? Those of you that know the teaching of Jesus, and over and over, it's always upside down. What we find is that Jesus says she gave more because she gave sacrificially. And he says God measures the heart, not the amount. So it's kind of like, what does that look like for us? What does that look like for us? Well, I'll end with this. This is kind of the through line for Christianity. If you're wondering, surrender, listen, and obey. It's the process that we walk through in all things. Dating, marriage, singleness, our time, our money, our bodies, our thoughts. Surrender, listen, obey. The key to surrender is this. Everything I am and have belongs to God. Everything. What's in here, what comes out of here, what I do here. Everything. What's in my bank account, my desk at work, the person's hand I hold. Everything I have belongs to God. And because of that, I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to him. And so when we listen, we say, God, what do you want to do through me? What do you want to do through me? Just the question. It's not even that threatening. It's just a question. And then when he speaks to you, it's obey. And here's the hard part. It's to say yes to whatever he puts in your hands and on your heart. We're already doing that with everything. The idea is to do it with the one we can trust. So our picture is this, right? Everyone has a part. Everyone has a part. If Macedonia had a part, everyone has a part. And the part may look like this. I was talking to someone this week, and they said, here's a concern I have with this building project. I don't know that East Wind's currently squeezing all the juice out of the fruit. I thought, that's awesome. Thank you for that word picture. The idea was if we're going to be building, we have to live now in the life of this church. We've got to continue to give our time and resources to our kids and our youth. We've got to, right now when you come in, here's a challenge for you, 9 o'clock and 10:30 service. We all love the aisle because maybe we have to run to the bathroom or the sermon sucks and we want to run or whatever. But here's the thing. If you would scoot to the middle, there's people who can come right in and just grab a seat. They can have a spot to sit instead of standing in the back and going, I'm not sure if that's squeezing the juice. It's starting to sacrifice every minute of every day in the life of our church. It's doing the thing we know we should do, but we're not sure we have time, but we say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to prioritize it. I'm going to look at my schedule. I'm going to get involved. Our 88 junior hires, right? Dominic, how many leaders did you have? Do you know off the top of your head? 10 volunteers, okay? 10 adults who showed up after work to pour their lives into 88 junior hires. He needed 40, 50, they're junior hires, all right? So over the course of this month, we're going to be talking about squeezing the juice as well. Some of you are newer, and you're like, that's what I need. I'm ready to jump in. I'm ready to get involved in that way. For some of you, that's going to be in your bank accounts. For all of us, let's make it in our prayer life. Let's pray every single day for what God's doing in the life of this church. Those who walk in the doors. Everyone has a part. Practically, this is what it looks like. So in your seats in front of you are these pledge cards. I'd actually love like everyone to have one in their hand. So if you could grab them, hand them out. If people don't have one, give one to the person next to you. Front row needs them, it turns out. So row behind the front row, if you could get the front row one of these. Everyone just needs one. You maybe haven't seen one of these before if you're not part of church for a long time. This is your prayer journey for the next 4 weeks. If you're a guest today, you can hold the card so you don't look like you're not going to take it and slip it back when it's over, okay? Also, I didn't give this card to you. Someone there did, so talk to them about it. But here's what unfolds. I want you to take this home with you and just start praying. God, what would you like me to do as part of this project? $2.5 million goal. It's going to take all of us playing a part. Right? And on the front, it gives you some ideas of what that would look like over 3 years. So our campaign is a 3-year campaign. Your goal or your gift or your pledge is a 3-year pledge. Over 3 years, I can do this. Emily and I are wrestling with this, looking at her job and my job and how that all plays out and putting our pledge together for this, right? And then if you turn to the back, we're going analog. And that's not the right paper on this. We're going to turn these in instead of have some digital form we fill out. What we'd like you to do is not bring it back right away. Just sit on it and pray on it. And then don't skip church all October because we'll keep talking about it afterwards. Sit on it, pray on it, and then bring it back. And the last Sunday in October, we're going to collect these. We're just going to collect them. And then the first Sunday in November, we're going to tell you what happens. Are we going to build or not? The Lord's going to tell us that by how we come together. So I want you to take this home with you today. If you're like, I'm not sure I'm going to participate, would you still take it home and just pray? And just hold it with you and know that this is what your church is leaning into in this season of our lives. And here's the prayer that you add with this card. The prayer you add is you think about what your gift will be and how you'll do it. And this is in addition to what we already give in the life of this church. We still need pizza for kids and the subsidized vans for camp. We still turn the lights on here, and we got to take care of our parking lot when it cracks. We still pay our staff. It's an important thing, right? So that's a shout out to our staff right there. So here's the thing. Here's a question. We're going to end with this. God, what do you want to do through me to accomplish your will for our church? If this isn't your church, here's your prayer. God, I came here today. It was a family meeting. I'm not sure that's what I had in store. What do you want to do through me? Just period. Stop right there. Don't worry about taking it to the next place. Don't let me stop you. You can go, no, I'm actually in. I just don't want you to skip over grace. So I'll give you a moment, and we're going to end today with communion.